I'm going to ask kind of a broad question. I know you deal with it in the book, so I want you to be able to go with it wherever, but we're a lot better about mental health nowadays. I remember as the Real World seasons came on, it seemed to me as a younger person, and I think I already mentioned him, Puck. I saw him and I went, oh, they put him in this show because he's mentally unstable and he was going to make things happen. And then for me, I kind of started to write off reality TV. It's like they're taking these people and not mocking them, but are not in mentally good places. And they're putting them in these stressful environments. And it seemed like what happened is every reality show after that started to play on that, to put these people in here who they knew would explode or do something extreme. Is that just me remembering it that way, or was that actually going on behind the scenes?
That's a really interesting response because first of all, I absolutely agree with the broader thing that you're saying. I think people frequently cast cast members because they're mentally unstable, either mentally ill or vulnerable because of trauma. Like there's a bunch of different ways that someone can be unstable. And they do, before people go on shows, they often go through a psych checkup and they know every issue a person has. And there's a frequent thing where people talk about where they try to cast somebody who's basically just crazy enough to basically break down on the air, but still be functional enough to actually make the show, or basically be unstable in a way that makes them more likely to make the poor decision to go on to the show in the first place and sort of spill the beans and exhibit their more outrageous qualities, but not self-aware enough to recognize that that will be dangerous for them. I mean, some of that is really on casting. And I talked to several people in the book, including a cast member from the first season of the American Big Brother cast, she had an undiagnosed mental illness when she went in. There's no way the casting people didn't know that. It caused her to have an incredible breakdown that was totally traumatic, absolutely publicized. I watched it. It was live on the show, harvested for drama, and then she was essentially abandoned. Her story, she's not alone in that. But it's funny that you brought up Puck because, to use the technical term, Puck was clearly very fucked up. But I'm not sure that what was happening was that they were casting someone who was vulnerable or mentally ill. Puck was a shit-stirring narcissist. He may have had other diagnosable issues, and I don't want to diagnose things or talk about various problems he might have had. But one thing I do feel about him is that he consciously chose to go on the show because he knew that it would be a platform on which he could be a colorful troublemaker. And honestly, just like Pedro Zamora, he knew that the choice to go on the show would make him famous, and he wanted to be famous in that way. I don't think that worked out very well for him in the long run, but there is a point at which it's when is the show responsible for letting someone go on the air? And when does somebody get to make that choice for themselves? I think it's a tricky thing. I will say that, and this sounds callous, but Puck's presence on the show, George Verschure, who was the showrunner that season, and who was an initial very important producer on that show. From his perspective, that season of television would not have been good if it was just Pedro doing good things and being lovable and wonderful. The show relied on Puck's presence, being one of the first real reality villains. But he felt like both of them were very self-aware of their choice to go on the show. And you can take that or leave it. But there definitely is a kind of person, Lance Loud was one also, who embrace the camera rather than feel like they're abused by it, and who play into the camera. Years later, people would deliberately embrace the villain at it too.